Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The birth of a star. Legends don't just happen. They're born with fire and forged through discipline. Kwon Ji-Yong. To the world, he would one day be known as G-Dragon. But before the music, before the fame, before the iconic fashion and stadiums filled with screaming fans, there was a young boy born in the heart of Seoul, South Korea, on August 18th, 1988. From the very beginning, there was something different about Ji-Yong. He wasn't just active, he was electric. While other children played with toys, Ji-Yong gravitated toward music. He would dance around the living room, mimicking the stars he saw on television, soaking in rhythm and melody as if it was embedded in his DNA. He wasn't just entertained by music, he studied it. At 5 years old, most kids are just learning how to navigate a classroom. But Ji-Yong? He was already stepping onto stages. His first major appearance was on a children's television program called Bibo. It was a popular show in Korea, and there he was, a tiny kid with oversized dreams, performing for an audience of thousands through their TV screens. It was more than just a cute cameo, it was a sign. The cameras adored him. He lit up the screen not just with his smile, but with a presence that far exceeded his years. But here's the key: his family noticed. His mother especially saw something rare. She wasn't content letting that fire burn without fuel. She enrolled him in dance classes, vocal lessons, and performance workshops. She knew that raw talent was only half the equation. The other half? Relentless development. And Ji-Yong, even as a child, didn't resist the discipline. He embraced it. It was in those early dance classes that his legendary work ethic was born. While others struggled with routines, Ji-Yong would practice them over and over at home. He wasn't trying to be better than the others. He was trying to be his best. And that mindset, that relentless pursuit of excellence, would become a defining trait throughout his life. By the time he was 8, he was cast in the kids' music group Little Roo-Rah. Most kids would see that as a dream come true. Ji-Yong saw it as just the beginning. He learned choreography, recorded songs, and performed in front of live audiences. He learned how to carry himself on stage, how to project energy, how to engage with fans, lessons that no textbook could teach. But when Little Roo-Rah disbanded, many might have thought the dream was over. Not Ji-Yong. That early taste of performance didn't satisfy him. It awakened a hunger. At age 11, he took a significant leap. He became a trainee under SM Entertainment, one of the biggest entertainment companies in South Korea. This wasn't just another dance class or local performance. This was the big leagues. The trainees at SM weren't just there to sing and dance. They were being groomed to become idols, the face of the future K-pop industry. But something didn't sit right with him. Even though he was surrounded by opportunity, Ji-Yong felt creatively stifled. He wanted more than just a pretty image or rehearsed performance. He wanted expression, real, raw, revolutionary expression. So after a year, he made a bold decision. He left SM Entertainment. That decision could have ended his career before it truly started. But instead, it opened the door to something greater: YG Entertainment. Joining YG was a game changer. YG was the edgier, more hip-hop influenced company compared to the glossy, polished image of SM. It was here that Ji-Yong finally felt at home. Not only could he sing and dance, he could rap, he could write, he could create. He wasn't just another trainee. He was an artist in the making. And here's where things truly get inspirational. At just 12 years old, Ji-Yong didn't act like a child. He acted like a future CEO. He started writing his own lyrics, practicing freestyle rap, studying American hip-hop culture. He wasn't trying to emulate it. He was trying to understand it. He looked up to artists like Wu-Tang Clan, Tupac Shakur, and Notorious B.I.G., not just for their sound, but for their storytelling. He realized that music wasn't just sound, it was a message. One of the pivotal moments came when he was introduced to Perry, one of YG's producers, who gave him a CD filled with hip-hop instrumentals. Ji-Yong took it home, listened to every beat, and started writing. He wasn't just writing for practice. He was writing like he had something to say. By the time he was a teenager, he was already producing tracks. Most kids his age were studying for exams. Ji-Yong was studying drum patterns and rhyme schemes. And alongside him in this journey was another trainee who would become a lifelong friend and collaborator, Dong Young-bae, known as Tae-yang. The two trained together, pushed each other, and dreamed big together. They weren't rivals. They were brothers in arms. And that bond would go on to form the emotional core of what would become one of K-pop's most legendary groups, Big Bang. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Before G-Dragon became the leader of a cultural movement, he was a kid with a relentless dream. A kid who didn't just want the spotlight, he wanted to deserve it. He understood early on that fame without substance was hollow. So he poured everything he had into becoming more than just a performer. He wanted to become a creator. His childhood wasn't ordinary. It was a daily commitment to growth. And that's the lesson here. Talent might get you noticed, but obsession is what makes you unforgettable. G-Dragon's origin story isn't just about early fame. It's about vision. A young boy who looked at the world not for what it was, but for what it could be. A boy who didn't wait for permission to be great. He demanded it from himself. And if you want to become like G-Dragon, you must start where he started. Not with fame, not with fans, but with fire. You must wake up every day with a hunger to learn, to grow, to create. You must listen to the rhythm of your own voice, even when the world is silent. You must believe that your story is worth telling, even if no one else believes it yet. Because true legends aren't born under the spotlight. They're born in the shadows, where the work gets done, where the skills are honed, where the dreams are carved into reality with sweat and sacrifice. And just like G-Dragon, your first stage might be small. But if your fire burns bright enough, the world will have no choice but to watch it grow. Chapter 2. Building Big Bang. Becoming a leader. Dreams are powerful, but teams turn dreams into revolutions. By the early 2000s, G-Dragon had already solidified himself as a standout talent in the YG Entertainment trainee ranks. He wasn't just a good rapper or a gifted performer. He was a visionary in the making. And visionaries need a stage. That stage would come in the form of something that would change the landscape of K-pop forever. Big Bang. The concept for Big Bang was simple in theory, but monumental in execution. A group that could blend the street-savvy rhythm of hip-hop with the mass appeal of pop. Yang Hyun-suk, the founder of YG, knew that if anyone could lead such a group, it was Kwon Ji-Yong. But Ji-Yong wasn't just handed the title of leader. He earned it. Let's be clear. Leadership isn't about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about being the clearest, the calmest under pressure, the first to show up and the last to leave. From the moment Big Bang began taking shape, G-Dragon led by example. He trained harder, he studied longer, he produced more. The lineup, which included Taeyang, Daesung, Seungri, and T.O.P., was diverse in skill and personality. But they were raw. They were rough around the edges. Ji-Yong saw that not as a flaw, but as potential. He knew they could be special, not because they were the best at everything, but because they were different. The group's formation was documented in a televised reality show called Big Bang Documentary. Millions tuned in to see young, ambitious trainees try to find their place in the final lineup. For Ji-Yong, it wasn't just a show. It was a test of character. The pressure was relentless. Every move was scrutinized. Every moment was a chance to break down or break through. And Ji-Yong, he didn't just survive the process, he dominated it. But here's the kicker. Leadership came with a cost. When you lead, you carry the burden of others. You take the blame in failure, and you often get less credit in success. G-Dragon shouldered the emotional load of holding the team together. He encouraged Daesung through vocal insecurity. He motivated Seungri during moments of doubt. He pushed T.O.P. to dig deeper as a rapper. And with Taeyang, his brother-in-arms, he built a rhythm that would define the group's signature. Their official debut came in August 2006. The early response? Lukewarm. Big Bang's first few singles had modest success. Critics weren't sure what to make of them. They didn't fit the mold of the clean-cut, polished boy bands dominating the industry. They were edgier, more raw, and sometimes rougher in their delivery. But G-Dragon wasn't in it for fast fame. He was in it for evolution. He doubled down in the studio, writing and producing tirelessly. He studied audience reactions. What moved people? What left them cold? Every stage performance became an experiment in emotional connection. And then the breakthrough came. Lies, written and composed by G-Dragon himself. Released in 2007, Lies wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural detonation. The song topped charts for weeks, sweeping awards and launching Big Bang into the stratosphere. It wasn't just catchy, it was authentic. Pain, regret, heartbreak, all wrapped in an addictive hook and pulsing beat. For the first time, K-pop saw idols as storytellers. That was G-Dragon's genius. He didn't want to be a star. He wanted to be an artist who makes you feel something. Following Lies, G-Dragon led the group through hit after hit. Last Farewell, Haru Haru, Sunset Glow. Each release felt like a new chapter in the group's emotional autobiography. The public connected. The numbers soared. Awards flooded in. Suddenly, the boys who were once seen as outliers had become icons. But success is a double-edged sword. With fame came expectations. Critics scrutinized every move. Fans demanded more, bigger, better. The industry took notice, some in admiration, others in envy. For G-Dragon, it wasn't enough to stay relevant. He wanted to reinvent. Behind the scenes, the work intensified. G-Dragon was constantly in the studio, sometimes sleeping only a few hours a night. He was involved in every step, writing, producing, styling, directing. The vision had to be his, not out of ego, but out of purpose. In interviews, fellow members often described him as a perfectionist. If a lyric wasn't right, he rewrote it. If a dance move didn't land, he drilled it again. If a theme felt stale, he flipped it on its head. But despite the pressure, Ji-Young always returned to the core. Why are we doing this? That clarity kept Big Bang grounded, even as they conquered Japan, expanded across Asia, and began making waves globally. Their concerts became events, not just performances, but immersive experiences. G-Dragon's fashion sense evolved, pushing boundaries. His hair changed colors. His style defied norms. He became not just a K-pop star, but a global fashion icon. More importantly, he gave others permission to be themselves, to be loud, to be bold, to express. Here's what you need to understand. G-Dragon wasn't just building a career. He was building a movement, and every movement begins with belief. Belief in the power of vulnerability, in the courage to fail publicly, in the discipline to rise every time you fall. So if you want to become like G-Dragon, ask yourself, can you lead when no one claps for you yet? Can you hold others up when you're barely holding yourself together? Can you dream bigger and work harder than everyone around you? Because leadership isn't about being in front, it's about going first. And G-Dragon went first, into new sounds, new styles, new territories. He wasn't afraid to look different, to sound different, to be different. And in doing so, he gave a generation the freedom to follow. Big Bang wasn't just a group, it was a revolution. And it started with one young leader who believed that music could mean more. Believe in your voice, build your team, write your truth. Because becoming G-Dragon isn't about fame, it's about fearlessness. Chapter 3. Reinvention, the rise of a solo icon. True greatness isn't staying on top, it's rising again in a new form, stronger, bolder, and freer. Big Bang had become a phenomenon, but G-Dragon was never one to settle into a comfort zone. Just as the world was adjusting to the idea of idols as artists, Ji-Young did what only the greats dare to do. He stepped away from the group's spotlight to risk everything as a solo artist. To become G-Dragon wasn't just to be part of a revolution. It was to be the spark that starts one. In 2009, he released his first solo album, Heartbreaker. It was an instant game changer. The album shattered records, becoming one of the best-selling solo projects in Korean music history. But more than the numbers, it changed how idols were perceived. No longer just performers, G-Dragon was a producer, lyricist, and visionary. Heartbreaker wasn't a safe project. It was experimental. Futuristic beats, electronic influences, genre-blending madness that still somehow worked. Critics debated it, fans obsessed over it, and the industry woke up. Ji-Young was no longer just the leader of Big Bang. He was something else now, a solo force of nature. But here's the truth about reinvention. It terrifies people. Even as Heartbreaker soared, plagiarism accusations surfaced. Some compared the title track's sound to a Western pop song. The controversy was loud, and for a moment, the world seemed ready to tear him down. But G-Dragon didn't panic. He refined, refocused, reasserted his identity through art, not apology. Instead of shrinking, he expanded. He released collaborations, dove into deeper experimentation, and planned his next solo transformation. That transformation came in 2012 with the release of One of a Kind, and it lived up to its name. Tracks like Crayon, That XX, and One of a Kind weren't just songs. They were statements, wild, eccentric, fearless, like G-Dragon himself. He brought fashion, visuals, sound, and attitude into one cohesive world, and every inch of it was personal. This wasn't just K-pop, it was Kwon Ji-Yong pop. He blurred lines between hip-hop, rock, electro, and indie. His visuals were surreal, his lyrics raw, and once again, he proved that reinvention wasn't deviation, it was evolution. In 2013, he released Coup d'etat, his most ambitious work yet. The name said it all, a revolution. The album was a blend of cultural critique, introspection, and musical risk-taking. Songs like Crooked screamed emotional chaos. Who You revealed romantic vulnerability, and Coup d'etat itself, produced with Western heavyweights like Diplo and Bauer, declared global ambition. G-Dragon wasn't just trying to top the charts anymore. He was trying to change the system. And here's what you need to take from this chapter. Reinvention is the highest form of self-respect. Most people cling to what works. Ji-Yong constantly breaks what works to find what's next. But reinvention requires courage. It requires the willingness to outgrow your past self, to upset fans, to fail in public. But that's what separates stars from legends. And during this era, G-Dragon became a cultural icon, not just in Korea, but globally. He walked in Paris Fashion Week. He collaborated with brands like Chanel. He broke gender norms in fashion. He spoke through every outfit, every lyric, every silence. He inspired a generation of idols to write their own songs, to direct their own music videos, to create from their soul, not a script. If you want to be like G-Dragon, you have to let go of being liked by everyone. Because when you reinvent yourself, you challenge people. They might resist. They might reject. But the right ones will recognize your evolution and rise with you. Ji-Yong teaches us, don't chase relevance. Chase truth. Don't fear change. Initiate it. Don't copy trends. Create them. Reinvention isn't a single event. It's a lifestyle. And every time the world tried to place G-Dragon in a box, he painted the box gold, set it on fire, and danced in the ashes. The world doesn't need more copies. It needs you, evolving constantly into your highest self. That's what G-Dragon mastered. And that's what you must chase, not perfection, but transformation. Because the only way to become unforgettable is to become one of a kind.
Chapter 4, Fashion, Art, and Identity. G-Dragon as a cultural architect. You don't follow trends, you architect culture. By the mid-2000s teens, G-Dragon had gone from pop star to paradigm shifter. He wasn't just a musical icon. He had transformed into a cultural architect, building bridges between fashion, art, music, and self-expression that spanned continents and cultures. Wherever G-Dragon went, the world paid attention, and not just because of his music. It was how he dressed, how he walked, how he carried himself like a living canvas of fearless self-expression. He wasn't just wearing clothes, he was telling stories. He was redefining masculinity, breaking free from the rigid molds K-pop stars were expected to fit. He painted his nails, wore skirts, rocked eyeliner and pink hair. Some loved it, some hated it, but no one could look away. That's the mark of a visionary. In 2015, Vogue dubbed him the K-pop king, and designers across the world, Karl Lagerfeld, Virgil Abloh, Demna Gvasalia, recognized him not just as an icon, but as a muse. He wasn't just walking runways, he was influencing them. He didn't wait for fashion to come to him. He entered the space as a disruptor, bold, unapologetic, unpredictable, and in that chaos, he found his voice. G-Dragon became a regular at Paris Fashion Week, sitting front row at Chanel shows, later becoming a brand ambassador, not by fitting in, but by standing out. He wore tweed jackets, pearls, combat boots, sometimes all at once. Why? Because every outfit was a message. You can be anything, even if you were born into a system that says otherwise. This is what true identity means. It's not the roles society gives you. It's what you create when you break them. And Ji-Yong wasn't just breaking molds in fashion, he was also shaping modern Asian masculinity. In a world where men are still pressured to be stoic, strong, and silent, G-Dragon showed that softness is a strength, vulnerability is power, and aesthetics are a language. That takes courage. That takes vision. That takes relentless authenticity. But here's the lesson. You don't build identity through imitation. You build it through experimentation. You try things. You fail. You look awkward. You get judged. And then, through that fire, you find something that is purely and unquestionably you. G-Dragon found that. And it's what made him not just a pop star, but a movement. In 2016, he took things to a new level by launching his own fashion brand, PEACEMINUSONE. This wasn't just merchandise. This was philosophy as fashion. The brand name itself was symbolic. The world is full of peace, but it's always missing something. That -1 is a call for personal expression, a rebellion against conformity. And every piece, from denim jackets to floral accessories, echoed Ji-Yong's belief that art isn't just for galleries. It's for everyone. It's worn, lived, felt. Peace Minnesone was a smash hit, not just commercially, but culturally. Fans weren't just buying clothes. They were buying into a lifestyle, a mentality of boldness, elegance, and introspective rebellion. Because G-Dragon didn't sell products. He sold ideals, and people followed. And if you want to become like G-Dragon, here's what you must understand. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You don't need to fit in to be respected. You don't need to explain your art, you just need to create it. He never chased the mainstream. He made the mainstream chase him, even when critics called him too feminine, too strange, or too controversial. He kept moving forward. Not because it was easy, but because it was honest. Every artist has to ask themselves one question. Am I doing this for approval, or am I doing this to express my truth? Ji-Yong always chose the latter, and in doing so, he didn't just become a singer, a dancer, or a celebrity. He became a symbol for fluidity, a symbol for freedom, a symbol for the future. If Chapter 3 was about reinvention, Chapter 4 is about ownership. Owning your voice, owning your image, owning your identity, even when it scares people, even when it scares you. Because the truth is, most people spend their lives playing roles that others have written for them. G-Dragon picked up the pen and wrote his own. You want to become like him? Then stop waiting for permission. Start designing your identity, not the one you think will be accepted, the one that burns inside you, waiting to be seen. That's what G-Dragon did, and that's what you must do, because the world doesn't need more predictable stars. It needs architects of culture, and that's what G-Dragon became. Chapter 5, Vulnerability and the Inner War, the human behind the icon. Strength isn't the absence of struggle, it's being seen through it. Fame is a double-edged sword. One side gleams with admiration, opportunity, and power. The other cuts deep with pressure, surveillance, and isolation. By the time G-Dragon had become a global icon, a musical visionary, a fashion tastemaker, a cultural symbol. He was no longer just Kwon Ji-Yong, he was G-Dragon, and that distinction, that separation between self and persona started to wear thin. In public, he was the fearless performer, the frontman, the fashion rebel. But in private, he was a young man navigating the chaos of identity, purpose, and loneliness. And that's something most people overlook, because behind the magazine covers and sold-out arenas is a person asking the same questions we all ask. Who am I when no one's watching? What happens when I stop performing? Will people still love me if I'm just me? This is where the G-Dragon story becomes even more powerful, not because of his success, but because of his vulnerability. In 2017, G-Dragon released Kwon Ji-Yong, an EP that stripped away the layers of fame and brought listeners into his inner world. It wasn't polished, it wasn't perfect, and that was the point. The songs were raw, deeply emotional, and intensely personal. Tracks like Untold 2014 revealed a man grieving love, seeking peace, yearning for simplicity in a life bursting with chaos. He wasn't rapping about status. He wasn't flexing fame. He was whispering truth. He was saying, "This is who I am." Broken, tired, real. And it struck a nerve. Because in a world of curated images and flawless facades, honesty is revolutionary. The album, released digitally as a red USB drive, even sparked controversy. The Korean music charts questioned whether a USB drive counted as an album. It didn't matter. Fans knew this wasn't just music, it was medicine. A window into a soul we thought we understood, but barely knew. It debuted at #1 in multiple countries. But more than that, it started a conversation about mental health, about creative burnout, and about the human cost of stardom. If you want to become like G-Dragon, you must embrace this truth. You can't be fearless unless you're first honest with your fear. The higher you rise, the more pressure you carry, the more applause you receive, the more silence you feel afterward. That silence, that's where you meet yourself. And Ji-Yong did. In interviews, he spoke about the identity crisis he faced, how even he struggled to know where the line was between G-Dragon and Kwon Ji-Yong, how he longed for ordinary things, real friendships, quiet time, a break from the spotlight. This chapter of his life was less about performance and more about reflection. He even entered South Korea's mandatory military service in 2018. For many stars, this would be a career disruption. For Ji-Yong, it became a period of self-reconnection, a reset, a reboot. Because even icons need to step away from the noise to hear their own voice again. While serving in the military, he was cut off from the world, from stages, fans, and fame. And it was in that silence, that solitude, that he began to remember who he was before the lights. And when he emerged in 2019, something had changed. He was quieter, more thoughtful, still bold, still stylish, but carrying a depth that only comes from having walked through fire. You want to be like G-Dragon? Then understand this. Reinvention isn't always external. Sometimes it's internal, invisible, soul deep. Sometimes your greatest breakthrough doesn't come from creating something new. It comes from rediscovering something old, your essence, your purpose, your peace. So here's your challenge. Stop running from your shadows. Stop hiding from your doubts. Sit with them, listen to them, let them teach you. Because becoming unstoppable doesn't mean you never fall apart. It means you build power from the pieces. That's what Ji-Yong did, and that's what you can do too. Because greatness isn't just measured by how high you rise. It's measured by how deep you're willing to go to find yourself again. Chapter 6. Legacy Interrupted. Scandals, Silence, and Survival. Your story isn't over when the world turns its back. It's only over when you stop writing it. Even the brightest stars cast shadows, and G-Dragon, for all his brilliance, wasn't immune to the storms of controversy. In the late 2000s and 10s, the K-pop world was rocked by scandals, not just in Big Bang, but across the industry. Fellow members faced legal troubles, public backlash, and career-threatening accusations. For Ji-Yong, it was a time of silence, a time when everything he had built, his music, his reputation, his influence, felt fragile. The media painted with broad strokes. Gossip and headlines replaced nuance. The noise was deafening. And G-Dragon disappeared from the spotlight. For nearly 2 years, the public barely saw him. No new music, no interviews, no fashion campaigns, just silence. For some, silence is the end. For G-Dragon, it was survival. Because when the world doubts you, when fans question you, when friends fade, when trust is shattered, you have 2 choices. Let it define you, or redefine yourself. G-Dragon chose the second. He didn't rush back. He didn't post hollow apologies or force comebacks. Instead, he listened, he learned, he waited. And when he returned, it wasn't with a bang, it was with intention. In 2020, he reappeared in campaigns with Chanel and Nike, quietly reestablishing his presence as both artist and brand. His limited edition Nike sneakers, the Peace Minnesota Paranoise, sold out globally. It was a reminder the culture still wanted him, still believed in him. But more importantly, he showed that resilience is a silent power. He began visiting art exhibitions, supporting young designers, collaborating behind the scenes, not to prove anything, but to nurture the culture he helped create. And this is your lesson. Legacy isn't about being loved all the time. It's about standing for something even when it's not popular. Ji-Yong never denied his missteps, but he also didn't let the world's judgment bury his voice. He kept walking, not always perfectly, but consistently, because life will test you. Your reputation may falter, your circle may shrink, but your core, your values, your truth, that's what keeps you standing. In every comeback, Ji-Yong has carried that quiet defiance. You might forget me, but I will never forget who I am. In 2021, he hinted at working on new music. No deadlines, no rush, just passion on his own terms. That's power. G-Dragon doesn't need the world's permission to create, and neither do you. So when your story feels interrupted by failure, by scandal, by heartbreak, remember, silence isn't the end. It's the space where you gather strength. Reputation can be rebuilt. Respect can be re-earned. But your dignity, that's yours to protect. Stand tall in your mistakes. Speak softly in your returns. And always, always let your actions rewrite your narrative. Because no matter how many chapters fall apart, the next one is still yours to write. Chapter 7, Return of the King, Crafting a New Era. You don't come back to be who you were, you come back to become who you're meant to be. The stage was quiet for too long. Whispers turned into doubts. Fans turned to memories. The world moved on, or so it thought. But in the shadows, something was brewing. G-Dragon, the artist, the icon, the visionary, was not done. Far from it. 2022 marked a turning point. As the world emerged from a global pandemic and a creative drought, Ji-Yong began to move again. Subtly, intentionally, strategically. He didn't just want to return, he wanted to redefine what return meant. You see, for most artists, a comeback is a repeat, a safe formula, a familiar sound. But G-Dragon? He doesn't repeat, he evolves. His rumored solo album wasn't just about music, it was about message, about evolution, about legacy. This chapter of his life wasn't about chasing charts, it was about reclaiming voice. And that's what you must understand if you want to become like G-Dragon. Power doesn't lie, in repeating your past. Power lies in creating your future on your own terms. In interviews, he spoke differently, calmer, wiser. There was still the mischievous spark, the punk spirit, but it was tempered with experience, no longer trying to prove, now ready to build. He began mentoring younger artists, not publicly, not with headlines, but quietly, in the background, sharing wisdom, opening doors, because true kings don't just reign, they raise kingdoms. He relaunched Peace Minnesone with deeper meaning, a brand that now stood not just for aesthetic, but for philosophy, the tension between peace and disruption, between harmony and rebellion, between G-Dragon and Ji-Yong. And in that, he gave the world something rare, a blueprint for sustainable creativity. Don't burn fast. Don't fade out. Instead, renew. Rebuild your voice. Reclaim your values. Release only when you're ready. And then, shake the world again. Because make no mistake, Ji-Yong wasn't just preparing to release music. He was crafting a new era. An era where he no longer chases trends, because he is the trend. An era where he no longer needs validation, because his legacy speaks for itself. An era where he creates for art's sake, because that's what real creators do. So, what does that mean for you? If you're waiting for the perfect moment to come back from your failures, if you're stuck trying to be who you were before it all fell apart, learn this from G-Dragon. Your return is not a rewind, it's a rebirth. You don't owe anyone your past self. You only owe yourself your true self. Let go of who you were, build who you are, and when you return, don't just return louder, return wiser, return with vision, return with purpose, because kings don't come back to sit on the same throne, they come back to build a bigger one. Chapter 8. The Art of Influence, G-Dragon's Global Impact. You're not successful when you're followed. You're successful when you shift the way others think. G-Dragon's influence didn't stop at music. In fact, it transcended borders, industries, and generations. He wasn't just a pop star. He became an idea. The idea that art and commerce could merge, that rebellion and elegance could coexist, that an Asian artist could dominate global culture on his own terms. This isn't just about billboards or fashion shows. It's about changing the way the world looks at creativity coming from Korea, from Asia, and about you realizing that your environment doesn't define your ceiling. Ji-Yong paved the way for K-pop's global explosion, not just through music, but by expanding the definition of what a Korean artist could be. Let's break it down. Music influence. G-Dragon was among the first Korean artists to write and produce his own music at a young age. His genre-bending style blurred the lines between hip-hop, pop, rock, electronic. Western artists, producers, and industry leaders respected him, not just as a performer, but as a creative. Fashion domination. Vogue called him a style icon. He was front row at Chanel, working with Karl Lagerfeld directly. He didn't follow fashion, he shaped it. Cultural relevance. In Korea, he challenged norms about masculinity, identity, and celebrity. Internationally, he was among the first to prove an Asian artist could headline festivals and influence high fashion. Brand power. From Peace Minnesone to Nike to Chanel, his endorsements weren't just commercial, they were statements. He created synergy between artistry and enterprise that few others have mastered. And all of this came with risk. He pushed boundaries, he courted controversy, he dared to be misunderstood, because influence isn't earned through imitation, influence is born through authenticity. G-Dragon never waited for the world to understand him. He created a world where understanding him wasn't the point, feeling him was. So if you want to become like G-Dragon, here's the lesson. Don't aim to be liked. Aim to shift the culture. Make people feel something. Awe, confusion, envy, inspiration. Make them question what's possible. Because the goal isn't to walk the path others paved. The goal is to pave new roads. You have that power. But only if you're bold enough to live your truth publicly. Think globally, move intentionally, create unapologetically. And when they ask, who gave you permission? Tell them this: I didn't ask, I inspired. G-Dragon didn't knock on doors, he built his own house, and the world came knocking. You can too. Chapter 9, Lessons in Legacy, What You Can Learn from G-Dragon. Legacy isn't what you leave behind, it's what you build while you're still here. At this point, G-Dragon isn't just an artist, he's a movement, a mindset, a mirror that reflects what's possible when vision meets courage. But here's the most powerful part. You don't have to be G-Dragon to live like him. You don't have to sell out stadiums. You don't need a record label. You don't need Karl Lagerfeld on speed dial. What you do need is belief. Belief that you can shape culture, that your voice, your art, your truth matters. G-Dragon's legacy is not just about what he created, it's about how he created and what that means for you. So here are 7 life lessons you can take from his story. 1. Define yourself before the world. Does Ji-Yong never waited to be labeled? He wrote his own identity in his music, his clothes, his choices. Don't wait for the world to name you. Introduce yourself to it. 2. Be a student before you become a master. He trained for years, wrote for other artists, learned every layer of the industry. Greatness isn't gifted, it's earned in the shadows. 3. Reinvent relentlessly. Every era of G-Dragon looks, sounds, and feels different because he doesn't cling to past versions of himself. Evolve or evaporate. That's the law of legends. 4. Embrace duality. Rebel and refined. Soft and strong. Ji-Yong showed us you can be many things at once. Wholeness is power. Don't flatten yourself to fit others' expectations. 5. Lead without needing permission. He didn't wait for doors to open. He kicked them down or painted his own. Stop asking, can I? Start declaring, watch me. 6. Turn pain into power. His struggles didn't break him. They sharpened him. He shared them through art. Your scars can be your script. Write with them. 7. Inspire, don't imitate. G-Dragon didn't try to become the next someone. He became the first G-Dragon. Don't copy your heroes. Become one. These are not just music lessons, these are life lessons. You may not have the same stage, but you have the same fire. The question is, what will you do with it? Will you shrink to fit into what's expected, or will you expand into what you're capable of becoming? Because that's the truth. To become like G-Dragon is not to live his life. It's to live yours at full volume. So create, lead, break rules, get back up, make noise. And when the world starts to follow your light, don't be surprised. You're not imitating a legend. You're becoming one. Chapter 10. Becoming your own legend. The G-Dragon Blueprint. A legend is not someone who lived a perfect life. A legend is someone who lived fully, fearlessly, and left a mark no one could erase. This final chapter isn't about G-Dragon. It's about you. If you've come this far, you're not just a fan. You're someone searching for inspiration, identity, fuel for your fire. And here's the truth. You have everything you need. The path G-Dragon walked wasn't easy, but it was his. Now it's your turn to walk yours. So what does it take? Let's distill the blueprint. 1. Vision. G-Dragon dreamed loud. He saw possibilities before the world could catch up. You must dare to see it first. The life you want. The legacy you'll leave. 2. Discipline. Talent got him noticed. Work ethic kept him legendary. Practice relentlessly. Master your craft. Every single day. 3. Authenticity. He never chased validation. He chased truth. Be so unapologetically you that the world can't look away. Fourth, resilience. Scandal, loss, silence. He came back every time. Fall 7 times. Rise 8. Rise louder. 5. Creation. G-Dragon didn't just consume culture. He created it. Don't wait for a stage. Build your own. Light it up. 6th. Impact. He changed how people dress, think, and dream. Make your moves count. Let your life ripple beyond you. 7. Legacy. And above all, he lived with the end in mind, not in fear, but in purpose. What will the world say about you when the curtain falls? The G-Dragon blueprint isn't about becoming a copy. It's about becoming a force. He wasn't born to fit in, neither were you. So when you walk into a room, don't shrink. Stand like you belong. Speak like it matters. Live like the next chapter in your legend depends on it, because it does. You've seen the journey. You've heard the struggles. You've felt the fire. Now ignite your own. Not tomorrow, not when you're ready, now. Because there's only one thing separating you from becoming a legend: action. Take the shot. Write the song. Build the brand. Start the movement. Speak the truth. Be bold. Be loud. Be you at maximum volume. And when they ask who inspired you, tell them this: I didn't want to become G-Dragon. I wanted to become legendary, and he showed me how. Your time is now. Your name is next. Go become unforgettable. Now like and subscribe.